Baylor's basketball season is over if this happens at the Big 12 tournament.
You are Locked On Baylor, your daily podcast on the Baylor Bears. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello there, Bears fans. Welcome to another episode of Locked On Baylor, brought to you by FanDuel. I'm your host, Cam Stewart of ESPN Central Texas and The Cam Show on YouTube. All this that we're talking about today is part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. On today's show, we're taking a look ahead at who Baylor men's basketball needs to face in the Big 12 tournament to keep their season going, potentially. Plus, you know what's worse than losing to TCU for a Big 12 championship? Having it happen twice in the span of 2 weeks. Is the women's team done before the tournament even starts? Plus, Baylor baseball school. Is it time for everyone to start taking notice? Let's go over all that and more on this episode of Locked On Baylor. Baylor men's basketball in a good spot right now. Not the best spot they could be in, but in a good spot. They lose to Houston on Saturday. Kind of went over it in the postgame, but I thought it was a good effort on Saturday. Now, that sucks that that's what Baylor's at right now. You know, to say, oh, it was a good effort. You played well against Houston. You lost, but you played well. I feel like the girl at the North Carolina game. At least they played hard. Like, that's what it's like for Baylor basketball this year versus last year or any of the last 5. You know, now we're like, hey, you know, they put in a full 40-minute effort, which should be the bare minimum, but we've all watched this team all season long. We know that's not always the case. And I said after the game, I think there are things you can point to in that performance against Houston to be optimistic. Now, again, I don't foresee this team going to the Final Four or anything like that, but I think there are reasons to be optimistic about this team, somewhat optimistic about this team going into postseason basketball based on the performance on Saturday. I want to get to that later, but it's all a wash if they end up playing Kansas State on Wednesday. Baylor's in the tournament right now, but things can get nuts in this last weekend, in this conference tournament weekend. Like, if you're a team like Baylor that's not on the bubble, but close to it, right, as a 10 seed, you don't get lower than 11 or 12 as a Power 4 team. If you're on that bubble, that kind of bubble right now, and you don't do anything at the conference tournament, which Baylor does a lot of nothing at the Big 12 tournament, then you are going to be biting your nails on Selection Sunday. And you look at the teams that they have the opportunity to face. It's the winner of Arizona State and Kansas State. And honestly, as a Baylor fan who's watched this team very closely over the last few years, I would be terrified to see Kansas State on the other side. Neither Kansas State nor Arizona State is obviously not making the tournament unless they win this conference tournament. And I look at a team in Arizona State that Baylor did not play very well against in Tempe and still got the win. They never go to the tournament. You know, Bobby Hurley has been a failure as a head coach at this level, both the Pac-12 and the Big 12. And then on the other side is Kansas State, a team who, you know, went to the Elite Eight 2 years ago, just missed the tournament last year and will be, you know, wanting to get back, be hungry to get back. They know how desperate this is, and I trust their coach more. Scott Drew is still 1-3 against Jerome Tang. They eked out a win this year because VJ had 30 points. But we have seen when this Kansas State team was desperate in the middle of the year, they went on a nice little run. They rattled off some big-time victories. Now they followed it up in the back third of this season with some bad losses, and that's why they're 15-16 and not going to make the tournament unless they win this one. But what they could do is play spoiler for Baylor. If they beat Baylor in the first round of this thing in Kansas City, then again, you're going back to Waco, wondering the whole flight home, have we done enough? You know, Lenardi's got us in right now. We had an opportunity to have a huge upset win over Houston, didn't get it done. which would have just nailed us on as an 8 or a 9 seed, and there was no chance to drop out of this thing. But now as you're a 10 seed, and if you lose the first game of the conference tournament to a team that's sub 500, I guess at that point they would be an even 500, then you're not doing yourselves any favors going into Selection Sunday. So I'm not saying if they lose, they're out, but you run that risk. And that's why I would much rather face Arizona State than Kansas State. Jerome Tang has Scott Drew's number. Okay, he does. And, again, had to win this year. But lest we forget, 1-3 against Jerome Tang all time. And those 3 losses, Baylor was the better team in all 3 of them. Like, they were the better team those years in all 3 of those games. So there's no guarantee that you just walk in to the first game of the Big 12 tournament and beat a Kansas State team. I think there's a pretty good guarantee you walk in and you beat Arizona State because you're really sleepwalked. So you were sleepwalking through that first game against Arizona State and you still beat them. So at this point, I would be terrified to see Kansas State on the other sideline in that first game of the Big 12 tournament because it just puts that seed of doubt in the back of your mind that have we done enough this year? Is the Kansas win enough? Is the St. John's win from November enough? Is that TCU win in Fort Worth last week, is that enough? But if face Arizona State, I mean, you might as well mail. Like, you've got it. You win one game in this tournament, and I think you're perfectly fine. Perfectly fine. But certainly not the kind of scenarios we wanted to be talking about at this point in the year. But what I saw in that game Saturday, once again, no production from your backcourt outside of VJ Edgecombe, which is super frustrating. Jeremy Roach, Jaden Nunn, Rob Wright couldn't get you to double digits between the 3 of them. That's really frustrating. You're not going to win many games like that, but you saw a full 40-minute effort. You saw them get back to how they were winning games early in the conference schedule, which was offensive rebounding. Norchad was incredible. We can say what we want about his basketball IQ, and I think it's been up and down at times this year. I think there's been times where he's really hurt the team, but most of the time he's been great for them. And say what you will about that stuff, he leaves it all out on the floor. I know it's cliche, it's corny, but this is a guy who's played a lot of college basketball, and he always leaves it all out there. He knows his college basketball games are numbered here. He has one more guaranteed basketball game, right? And once they get into the NCAA tournament, if he can give you some monumental performances like the one he gave on Saturday, even in defeat, like you get a full 40-minute effort, you get that out of him, you get the aggressive VJ, and you could sneak 2 wins in the tournament, which is not something I was thinking even a week ago. And it's still unlikely, but that could happen with the kind of effort that you saw on Saturday. A team that needs to change the way they play in order to make a run in March Madness is the Baylor women's team. What has to happen for this team to make the run we all thought they were going to at the beginning of this year? We'll tell you next on Locked On Baylor. But first, today's episode is brought to you by our friends over at Supply House. Get the supplies you need from the site made for the skilled trades. Supply House. Whether you're in plumbing, HVAC, or electrical work, Supply House is the reliable way to order products online. Their easy-to-use website is packed with helpful resources and the latest product info to help you get the job done right. Plus, with a complete inventory of over 200,000 parts from 400-plus top brands, you'll find exactly what you need delivered fast from coast to coast. Do you need help with an order? Supply House offers expert support and industry-leading service, so you'll always talk to a real person. Join the Trademaster program today at supplyhouse.com/TM and start ordering plumbing, HVAC, and electrical supplies with just a few clicks. Plus, use the promo code SH5, the number 5, for 5% off your first order. That's supplyhouse.com. Today's episode is also brought to you by Wayfair. Okay. If you are looking to spruce things up, your home should reflect your style. And with Wayfair, it's easier than ever to make that happen. Whether you're looking for a simple refresh or tackling a big home project, Wayfair has everything you need in one place. Their huge selection makes it easy to find the perfect piece, no matter your space or your budget. From cozy furniture and stylish decor to kitchen essentials and outdoor must-haves, Wayfair has it all, and at prices that fit your budget. I was looking for a new rug, tie the living room together. Found it at Wayfair, found it at a great price. So easy, and it's coming like that. Head over to wayfair.com and find something that's just your style today. That's WAYFAIR.com. Wayfair, every style, every home. Now it's time for the women's team to actually turn their eye towards March Madness. Conference tournament done there. And you know what sucks? Losing to TCU in a Big 12 championship game. You know what sucks even more? Losing to them twice in Big 12 championship games in the span of 7 days. Yes, that's brutal. TCU's only won 3 of the last 40 matchups, but they have clinched 2 championships over you in the last 2 Sundays. And both times Baylor had a chance to win the game, and both times they had a chance to take it late. But as I said, at the end of the game last Sunday, the same thing bit them in the butt this Sunday. When the game gets to winning time and the last couple of minutes, when the pressure is all the way on, the game speeds up for them. It gets too fast. It gets too overwhelming. And here's a team in TCU that has not been in these battles. Haley Van Lith, sure. She obviously had a good run at LSU last year to the Elite Eight. But this team has not played in this. They're really talented. They're really good, but they haven't been in these battles, and yet it's slowing down for them. TCU's just waiting for Baylor to make the mistake, and they did it 2 weeks in a row. Both times, Baylor got right back into the game. Both times, I think they tied the game late or got it within one possession, and then it just sped up for them again. And you'd think the second time in a week here, okay, they know what these last 2 minutes are going to look like. They know what this tight game is going to feel like. They're going to be better equipped. And to be honest with you guys, they weren't. They did the same crap. They're throwing the ball all over the place. They're not getting good looks. They make some plays in order to get a chance at a game-tying 3 with the last possession, and they're drawing up a 3 for their center, Aaronette Vonleh. What part of the 15% that she shoots from 3 makes you think, okay, that's where we should be going? That I don't understand that. Why are we drawing up a 3 for Aaronette Vonleh? And the real killer in this game, outside of that shot selection or that being drawn up in the huddle, I guess, because it's coming off a timeout. The other thing where I definitely saw and said, it's the moment's getting too big for Baylor, is they got it to 2 points, right? 59-57. They lose 64-59. They get it to 59-57 with 2:15 left, or it's actually about 2.5 minutes left. And TCU goes through a whole possession. And with 2:15 left, Aaronette Vonleh pulls down a rebound. She's boxed out Sedona Prince, and she's got a rebound, and she's looking at Prince, and she's just kind of holding it there. And someone else comes from TCU and just rips the ball right away from her. That's symbolic right there. That other team wants it more. TCU wanted it more, and they wanted it more in the big moments. And going off of that, so it goes from 2:15, and Baylor does not get the ball again until 1:23 left. That's what an experienced team does. They took over a minute off the clock from that first possession to Baylor getting the ball back. They shrunk the game. They took 2-3 possessions away from you just on that. And it was a couple of offensive rebounds. It was a foul. It was a ball going out of bounds off Sarah Andrews, who's trying to make a hustle play. And they end up getting the stop. But at that point, it's like the football team that's up 2 touchdowns with 5 minutes left, and you go on a 4.5-minute scoring drive. You've got them where you want them. It's only a 2-point game with a minute plus left, but you've just taken 3 possessions potentially out of their hands. That's where TCU was the better team down the stretch for the second week in a row. They played better, smarter, harder basketball than Baylor did, especially in those last couple minutes. Would it have made a difference if Dariana Littlepage-Buggs was out there? Of course. I said that last week. I think that was the biggest game that they missed her. And they missed her again this week. She's, an all Big 12 player. But again, even with that, you look at the fourth quarter of that game, Sedona Prince didn't do much of anything. They did a really good job on her, finally, down the stretch of that game. And still it was Baylor. Just the game got too fast again. And it was that way the whole first quarter, right? And Nikki Collin is telling whomever the reporter was it Chris Budden maybe, that we just got to slow down. We've got to slow down. We're too antsy right now, and TCU is very comfortable. And she says that to ESPN at the beginning of the second quarter. So certainly that's what they're saying in the huddle. And I'm sitting there with 3 minutes left in the half. I'm like, they're still not slowing down. Just take a breath. And that's what concerns me about this team, is in the last 2 years when games have gotten tight and it's gotten to winning time late in the games, money on the table, chips all in, they get too antsy. The game does not slow down. For the great players and the great teams, these things slow down and they can manage it. Baylor right now can't. And here they are, second championship game in the span of a week, and it's still not happening. That has to happen in the NCAA tournament. Or else, who knows, man? Because they were in line to host going into this game yesterday, Sunday, and who knows where they're at now. The committee might still like them to host, but even if you do, 2022, they won the Big 12 regular season. They hosted. They lost to South Dakota at home in the second round. There's no guarantee that you're going to make it out of that first weekend if you can't do the little things right when the game is on the line. And I know that a lot of you watching and listening that have followed this team, I know that most of you will agree with me, whether you admit it or not. But also you'll say what I'm about to say is this team has the talent to do it. This team has the talent to make a Final Four run. They really do. You lose. You've lost Dariana Littlepage-Buggs here for a little bit. Nikki Collins says she's going to be back for the tournament, and they've got a break here to get her back and get her rested. And it stinks that you don't have Jana Van Geitenbeek. You haven't had her for the whole season. But if you look at this team compared to last year, this is a better team, right? You've got the post problem figured out with Aaronette Vonleh. I don't want her taking threes at the end of the game when you need a three, but you've got that part figured out. She obviously delivered a great performance against Oklahoma State on Saturday with 37 and 9. You've got a significantly more confident Bella Fauntleroy this year, or I should say maybe a more consistent Bella Fauntleroy. You're getting a much better Sarah Andrews at this point in the season that you had at this point last season. There's a lot to be happy about this team and be optimistic about in terms of how it's laid out in this roster and this personnel. But I just need to see them doing it at the end of a game. It's something we took for granted with Mulkey's teams all those years because they were much more talented than everybody else in the conference, but they won the conference because they could handle those moments. I look back to the 2019 team that won it all. They weren't challenged for most of the year, but when it came down to coming to shoving time in the Final Four, the semifinal, and the national championship game, they had the goods. They came up with it. They didn't bat an eye. And so that this team needs to learn how to win in crunch time because they're not showing it. And I get it. TCU's a very good team. I don't think the committee likes the Big 12, but they have a shot at a number 1 seed here. I don't like the Big 12 because they were only 8th ranked going into this game. But 2 wins over Baylor in a week should help them. But Nikki Collin and her team have got to figure this out. She said the 2-week break really helped them last year going into the tournament in terms of getting right. This team's in a better position than last year's team was. But you got to hope that these 2 weeks really help them here because they've got the talent to go on a run. We just don't know if they have the intangibles. We don't know yet. I thought we were going to learn on Sunday, and we didn't get a positive answer. A team that was positive on Sunday, your Diamond Dogs, Baylor baseball. Is it time to start taking notice of Mitch Thompson's Baylor Bears? Let's talk about that next on Locked On Baylor. But first, a message from our good friends over at FanDuel. March Madness is here, whether you like it or not. And FanDuel is giving you the chance to get in on the action like never before. Right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. That's 200 extra bucks to use on everything from buzzer beaters to Cinderella stories and even who's going to be cutting down the nets. I've got my eye on a few underdogs this year, just waiting to see where that seeding helps out. 12/5 every time. And FanDuel makes it easy to back them with the spreads, the totals, and the game props. The FanDuel app is simple to use, and when I win, I get paid instantly. No waiting around. That's kind of how I like to be with my money. I don't know about you guys. So visit FanDuel.com and get in on the college hoops action all tournament long. Once again, that's FanDuel.com. Shifting over to the Diamond, another series win for Baylor baseball. In fact, another series sweep for Baylor baseball against a team that broke our hearts in the 2019 regionals, Loyola Marymount. Baylor easy on Sunday. Easy like Sunday early afternoon, 9-1 against one of the great actors of all time, John Casale. Sorry, I'm getting word that the Loyola Marymount pitcher, John Casale, is not the same as the late John Cazale, the great actor from Boston of Godfather and Dog Day Afternoon and Deer Hunter fame. Not a great joke, I know. But Baylor gets the win. They get the series sweep. They dropped 2 out of 3 last weekend in Arlington against top 25 teams. They lost a 1-run game to a top 10 team and then lost to 23rd ranked Auburn 7-4. So they've been pretty impressive on the year, as I know you guys have seen. Sunday's game was interesting to me. Not that they didn't have big hits in there, but they kind of beat Loyola Marymount with paper cuts, which I just think is a mark of a good team. You know, I know you're not thinking, wow, I love when a team could just move the line and take advantage of their walks and things like that. But college baseball is weird. You get a Sunday afternoon game. That's usually where things get really nuts. And, you know, a Loyola Marymount team, they're not looking to get swept. That's why Sundays can get a little weird. You're throwing out a pitcher who's not your best, right, for both teams. And I love that Baylor just took advantage of what was given to them. Johnny Casale, again, not of Dog Day Afternoon, Godfather 2, and Deer Hunter fame, spelled differently, only goes an inning and 2/3. And he only gives up 3 hits, but he also gives up 4 runs because he walked a couple guys, 3 guys. He hit a batter, and Baylor only got 1 extra base hit off him and tagged him for 4 runs. In fact, one of the plays of the game was drawing a bases-loaded walk on a 14-pitch at bat. Like that's the kind of thing where, you know, Sundays you got a couple of new guys at the lineup. Typically, you're trying to do a little too much. And you're not letting the game come to you on a Sunday after a long weekend. But that's the kind of little thing that I'm like, maybe this is the Mitch Thompson team that we've been promised. Maybe he's got his guys in here. He's playing his fundamental brand of baseball. And maybe, just maybe, it's time for you guys to start paying attention. Not just because the team is good. Not just because I'm giving you a bunch of wonky baseball stuff that half of you are like, what the hell is this kid talking about? But because of all of those things, and it's really fun to get out to the ballpark, man. They got a home game on Tuesday against Sam Houston, who's bad. And then we're going to really start to learn some more about this team because they'll go into conference play, and that's on the road against Kansas. But it's time to get out there, guys. This team is going to make some noise this year. Like I kind of know the script a little bit. Like early in conference, they're going to win a couple series here. The first couple are against Kansas and Kansas State, winnable series. And then they're gonna take a series against someone pretty good, and you're gonna be like, what, really? Or, they're going to lose a 1-run game on Friday. They're going to win on Saturday and lose another tight game on Sunday against like an Oklahoma State or someone. And you'll be like, yeah, they lost the series, but damn, they looked good. They looked competitive. And to bring this up, we're now in year 2 of this, right? Or year 1. Sorry, we are in year 1 of this. I get them mixed up now. No Texas, no Oklahoma. And instead you get Arizona, good program. But Arizona State, not anymore. Utah, come on. BYU in for the second year? No. So you've got a chance to move up what's been a good competitive Big 12 the last 6 or 8 years. You got a chance to move up that with less resistance, I guess, than you would have in years past. There's no weekend series against UT. There's no weekend series against Oklahoma. I think there's opportunity for this team to not just get into the Big 12 tournament, which is the first step because they haven't done it under Mitch Thompson, but to make some noise, be in the top half of the Big 12. And if you're in the top half of the Big 12, you know what you're doing after the end of the regular season, after the Big 12 tournament? You're playing postseason baseball. Now we're getting way ahead of ourselves. That's 2 months away. But it might just be time, if you haven't already, to start paying attention to this Baylor baseball team. And those of you who have, let me know down in the comments below. Tell me how great it's been, why people should start getting on board. Let me know. Who do you want to face in the men's Big 12 tournament? How far do you think the women's team can go? What do they need to fix? Let me know in the comment section below. Be sure to like and subscribe. It helps out the channel a lot. You ring that notification bell on YouTube, you're going to get notified every time we're dropping videos on YouTube. I stress that now because it's going to be all over the place, right? We're going to have post games. We're going to have selection Sundays. We're going to have tournament previews. We're going to have all this crap in the good sense coming hard and fast at you over the next couple of weeks. So you don't want to miss any of that for the number one source of Baylor sports news and reactions that's not coming straight from the university. We thank you guys for making it your first listen today and every day. I really appreciate the heck out of you guys, especially those of you who listen every day, who find us on YouTube and wherever you find your podcasts. We will see you tomorrow on your favorite show, Locked On Baylor.